and good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Inspiration for Your Day. I'm your host, Nicole Georges Bennett, and it is my absolute pleasure to be back. I know we've had a long hiatus, but here we are, and it's 2022, if you can believe it. I'm getting a very late start to the year, but I promise you that it has been worth the wait because my guest is just that fantastic. So I would like to welcome into studio today Alex Nicholls, who is an art therapist. Hello, Alex.
Hello, thanks for having me, Nicole. Really pleased to be here.
So it is such a pleasure to have you on Inspiration for Your Day. And just to let you know, folks, that if you are looking out for the podcast, you can find it on life101radio.net. That's life101radio.net for past audio episodes. And of course, right here on this YouTube channel, you can catch the past video episodes of Inspiration for Your Day. So our topic today is art therapy. And maybe like me, when you first heard that term, you were like, what? so, so of course, I think we all know what therapy is and psychotherapy and things in that field. But art therapy was very new to me, so I'm very excited to have Alex here to tell us all about it. But before we dive into that, I just want to take a moment to say thank you to our sponsors and to hear their message. So stick with us. We will be right back.
Do you feel like you're in the boxing ring of life battling addictions such as drugs or alcohol? Are you struggling and barely holding it together? Listen to A Burning Love Moment every Monday on life101.net with host Pastor Sarita Jones and co-host Dr. Sylvia Shipman. This podcast addresses many issues associated with drug abuse and addictions while helping you overcome the darkness and despair in your life. With encouragement and guidance, you'll be able to break the chains of addictions and strongholds like never before by reshaping your mindset and transforming your life. Get ready to be empowered to take back control over your destiny with a burning love moment.
And we're back. Thank you, guys. And so, as I mentioned today, if you're just tuning into the program, this is Inspiration for Your Day. And my guest today is Alex Nicholls. Alex is an art therapist. So, Alex, before we dive into the magical world of art therapy, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and how did you get into art?
Yeah, certainly. I'm originally from the UK, from Liverpool in the United Kingdom. I moved to Canada about 14 years ago now, when I met my wonderful wife. I actually met her through my best friend who was getting married to a Canadian, and that Canadian sister was my wife. So my best friend is now my brother-in-law.
Wow.
They live about 5 minutes away from us out here in Mississauga. Yes, been an artist for all of my life and taken a very long time to admit that that is what I am. And yeah, have had a variety of education along the way, studying art, studying television and film design, and then a career in doing nonprofit work and international development. So it's been a fairly roundabout way of becoming an artist and using that skill set for supporting other people, supporting myself, but eventually managed to arrive at this place.
So, what was it that took you so long to decide that, yes, I am an artist? Was it a question of wanting to actually earn a living where you could support yourself?
Yeah, very much so. It was, I guess for me, I always growing up thought that kind of in order to kind of earn a living or to have a career, I would have to find a way of kind of compromising on my art, that I would look at becoming, you know, an architect or someone who designs, kind of had to do kind of graphic design, or advertising, those types of things, rather than doing kind of pure art. as kind of the main focus. None of those careers aren't great. I love them, and the opportunities that were there, but very much just felt like art was something that was more meant to be a hobby, or that there wasn't really the opportunity to, like you said, make a living or make a career out of doing that. Over time, I've tried a number of different things. I have tried my hand at being involved in an advertising agency. I've tried doing taking advantage of my science background as well, and kind of moving in that direction, and then working doing kind of television and film design, which was a fantastic phase of my life. But everything's really brought me back to creativity. And I would say the main focus for me in that has been realizing the power of imagination, and the importance of hope as a message. And so I think as soon as I started to embrace that, as soon as I started to really dive down to where my skill set was, but also what my calling was,
Right.
I very much felt like, it was really the voice of my community around me, but also the voice of God through those people in my life, that kind of said, it's okay. Like, this is what you're called to be. And so, yeah, I kind of would describe myself as a reluctant artist, but so glad that I finally taken that on and have that as part of my identity.
So you mentioned something that I found quite interesting, and that is about the voice of God speaking to you through various people, and that led you
Mhm.
to your purpose. So I think um, it's always a very fascinating topic when we talk about the Lord speaking to us and sort of directing our paths and being a light to our ways.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you? If you don't mind expanding a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Christian since I was 5 years old. Grew up in a Christian family. My dad is actually an Anglican priest. My mom does preaching in the Anglican church as well. Um, and so always kind of grew up with a Christian background, and really. Really, have kind of prayed a lot, and have kind of heard God speaking through various different kind of methods in my life, different modes. um, I would say the kind of main way that God speaks to me, other than through art, which is amazing to have kind of pictures and images that God kind of gives you, um, I would say, is the community around me. And along the way, I've had a number of mentors and a number of people in the community around me that have really kind of invested in me, prayed for me, guided me in different times of my life, sometimes challenging, sometimes less so. But really, um, yeah, it was kind of around the age of kind of 15 to maybe 17 that I started to really kind of push for my art. I was in Cambridge in the UK and had to, the course wasn't available to me, and so I had to really advocate to be involved in art in my school. um, I just moved into the area, and so the class had already filled up, and I had to kind of push for my art teacher, who also advocated for me to be able to add me to the class contingent, which was again such a privilege. And then it was really through university and studying television and film design, realizing that a lot of my fellow students were looking at films from a kind of gritty, realistic, supposedly realistic aspect, and making films that seemed to focus more on despair than hope,
Hmm.
and just feeling God and the community around me really kind of, really strongly, um, influenced me to say, where's the hope here? Where's the hope in the messages of these stories that are being told? Because hope is just as realistic as despair.
Absolutely.
Um, and so really it's been that ongoing process of those people speaking into my life, talking about the importance of imagination, of art, of expressing yourself, of encouraging others to express themselves, and those messages of hope, how we can use hope to inspire others around us, and through doing so really also find inspiration ourselves. um, Often when I do artwork in a prophetic art setting where I will paint to the worship music or during a particular church service, it's always fascinating to me, one, what comes out to me through the process of creating art, what strikes me as maybe a message that I wouldn't have heard otherwise through that creative process, but also when sharing that art with other people, what it says to them, what message they receive, and the messages that they receive and then share with me as the artist, are just as inspiring. And I really love that differing perspectives that we can all get through the sharing of art, through the sharing of community. Um, we really get to see all the different facets of who God is. It's like the ability to see through a crystal from different angles. We get to see God from the different perspectives of different people and the way that he's moving in different lives. And that can just be really incredible to be able to put yourself in someone else's place and see how God is involved in their life.
So it sounds as though you've always had that innate desire to find the good in
Mm,
what it is that you're producing, or that you're imparting to the world. So it's not then that far a jump to art therapy,
yeah,
because
it
it
was.
is all about that, bringing that hope to people. So I think you've got a great segue there to tell us, how did you get into art therapy? But before we do that, maybe we should define, what is art therapy?
Yeah, definitely. So art therapy is therapy where, rather than using words to express how you're feeling, you're using artwork as the initial point of contact, the initial way of expressing yourself to your therapist, or being able to identify for yourself what the particular experiences that you're having. So a lot of times art therapy is used for people maybe with trauma or challenges that they aren't able to express in words or find difficult to express in words. And so they're using art as the kind of starting point, and then it's their own interpretation of their art, their own kind of viewing of their art that allows the therapy to start.
So I'm trying to think of what that would look like in a practical setting. So, for example, if you have someone who is dealing maybe with some sort of childhood trauma, and they sit down for an art therapy session, how would that session begin? What would be the process that they would go through?
Yeah, for sure. So an art therapy session would normally start out with some kind of opening to kind of set the scene, maybe draw attention to how that person is feeling in that precise moment. So it might start with identify a color and a shape that would express your mood today. And so you might get a triangle being kind of pointy and spiky, red being maybe anger or frustration, maybe how they're entering the room. Maybe it's a green circle, and green to them is growth and inspiration, and the circle kind of feels friendly. But however they interpret that, That would be a way of kind of setting their intention on kind of how they're feeling and being aware of that. And then you would get into doing kind of a main invitation, and that might be something like there's the Tree of Life, which is an art invitation where you go through the stages of drawing a tree based on different parts of people's lives. So the root system might be the history. It may involve some of those traumatic historic moments. It may involve some of those moments of significance in the past. The ground line being the present, what circumstances are currently affecting or impacting them. The trunk is values and skills. The branches, goals and hopes for the future. There's also a version where you have a compost pile, and the compost pile is things that you want to let go of or move on from that have kind of informed your past, but can now be used as food for the tree itself. They still have an impact in who you are, but they're things that you want to kind of move on from or separate a little bit by. And then the leaves could be the people around you, your community, those who are significant to you. And then the fruits, what is it that you're wanting to put out into the world? What are the gifts that you have received and that you also want to give? And so through the artistic process of creating this tree, people are also either writing down or drawing symbols and images to represent particular aspects of their life, so that they can see from a distance where there are maybe story threads that go through people's lives. How has a past trauma impacted what your values are? How does that impact how you view the goals and hopes for the future? And how does that impact the relationships that you have? And to see how that process is, and what, and then to be able to examine, maybe looking at some of those traumatic events and identify where those impacts really have made a difference, and is there a way of revisiting them and reframing them in a context that might be available to them now that they have the ability to look at the strengths that they've developed in life and the abilities to exist. And so there are a number of different ways that you can give those types of invitations to people to draw, to create art. And then it's really down to the client, the person who is looking, who's made the drawing, to really examine how it is that they relate to these different aspects of themselves.
So, I mean, I realize that, you are in a secular field, but you
Yes.
are a Christian
Yep.
therapist as well. Now, how does that inform your work, being a Christian?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I would say that the key thing to therapy and to artwork itself is the use of imagination. Imagination allows us to be creative in art, to be able to actually imagine what it is that we're going to create and then go through the process of creating it. But also in therapy, imagination is the only way that we can look to the future and say, how am I going to change? How might the future look different for me if I respond in a different way, if I change my thought process, if I look and examine my history and how that's impacted me? How might that change kind of the habits of how I process information, how I can become different? And I would say that imaginative, creative process of both art and therapy, for me, is the Holy Spirit. And whether other people want to call it that, whether other people have words or even language around what it is. I would still say that the ability to imagine a more positive future, the ability to move into a space where we're more loving and generous and hopeful and joyful, that to me is the Holy Spirit at work in our lives. And so that really is the driving force for me behind all of the work that I do. And I think the Holy Spirit ultimately, is, again, another, one of the representations of who God is,
Right.
and allows people to once they engage with that, see where um, the hope and the positivity of a full whole life can be found in Jesus, in God.
How have you seen people benefit from receiving or from participating in art therapy? Do you have
Mm.
any sort of anecdotes that you can share?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways that we use art therapy and therapy. One is kind of individual one-on-one, but there's also times that we use it in group exercises, and in group communities. And so in community, it's incredible to see people relate to each other's artwork, to relate to each other's experiences, to maybe see and understand for the first time what someone else is experiencing, maybe why they respond in a particular way. And so, in that regard, the ability for different people to respond to community and embrace kind of each other, and each other's experiences, to maybe share each other's experiences, identify that someone else is feeling very similar to the way that you feel, responding very similarly to the way that you respond, because you have a shared experience that, or a shared life event. Um, Really, to see that community aspect come together is incredibly powerful. To see people change based on the way that they understand themselves, and the other people around them. And then on a one-on-one situation, the ability for people to learn about themselves and really kind of love themselves through the process of discovering what, um, maybe, old wounds that they didn't realize that they have in their lives, maybe the impact that certain history events have made for them, um, and to be able to then express them, explore them,
Hmm.
navigate them, and make choices, informed choices about how they're going to respond in the future. That's incredibly powerful as well. Yeah, just the
So
ability.
it sounds as though the process is probably more important than the end result. So you're not actually necessarily looking to have a piece of work at the end of
Yes.
it, a piece of artwork at the end of it, or a sculpture or whatever it is. It's more about that journey, is what
Yeah.
I'm picking up from you.
Yeah, we often say that stick figures are welcome, more than welcome in art therapy. It really is anyone's ability, at any level, to create artwork, and I think that's one of the other things that I love about it: the ability, for there to be no bar to entry, no level that one needs to attain in order to be able to do the artwork, to express themselves. Um, I think everyone has that opportunity to, pick up an implement, or find a way of creating art, whether it's through the words or whether it's through, the actual media itself. And um, yeah, it really doesn't matter the end result as much as the process of creating. The end result often is pretty amazing anyway. Just whether it's the intentionality behind the artwork or whether it's the artwork's beauty itself, the process, the meaning behind it, the way that people have gone about creating and really investigating and investing in themselves. Yeah, it's pretty amazing to witness.
Well, we have come to the end of our time, so thank you so much for that crash course, quick crash. Oh, I can't speak now. For that crash course in art therapy. Thank you so much, Alex, for having joined us today. Before we go, maybe if someone would like to reach out to you, to connect with you, how can they do so?
Yeah, so I have a website that is currently a little bit of my past artwork, and also a little bit about my current studies in art therapy. That is Alex J. Nicholls, that's NICHOLLS.com.
All right, fantastic. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Inspiration for Your Day. A very big thank you again to our special guest, Alex Nicholls. And we will throw up that website address for you so that you can follow up with him and check out his work, because he is an artist, of course, in his own right. So until next time, God bless you and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Do you feel like you're in the boxing ring of life battling addictions such as drugs or alcohol? Are you struggling and barely holding it together? Listen to A Burning Love Moment every Monday on life101.net with host Pastor Sarita Jones and co-host Dr. Sylvia Shipman. This podcast addresses many issues associated with drug abuse and addictions while helping you overcome the darkness and despair in your life. With encouragement and guidance, you'll be able to break the chains of addictions and strongholds like never before by reshaping your mindset and transforming your life. Get ready to be empowered to take back control over your destiny with A Burning Love Moment.